Hi, I'm Ryan McConnell, and this is Crash Course Psychology. Today, we're diving into how we think about thinking. You might think that's a bit meta, and you'd be right. From dualism to the cognitive revolution, the study of psychology has come a long way, and it all started with a guy thinking about his own mind. Let's get into it. So, let's start in the way back machine with Rene Descartes, philosopher, mathematician, and man famous for sitting in a chair and thinking a lot. Descartes gave us dualism, the idea that the mind and body are separate entities. This was his way of solving the problem of how a squishy meat machine like the brain could produce thoughts like, I think, therefore I am. Fast forward a bit to Thomas Nagel, who wrote a book about how he really wants you to think about what it's like to be a bat. Why? Because it's a great way to explore the limits of subjective experience. Think about it like this. Even if we could describe echolocation scientifically, we'd still never know what it feels like to experience the world as a bat. So, thanks to Nagel, we now have an existential crisis and a newfound appreciation for flying mammals. Meanwhile, Thomas Hobbes wasn't feeling the whole mind-body split thing. He argued for materialism, the idea that everything about the mind could be explained by physical processes. For Hobbes, no pineal glands or mystical soul stuff were needed. Just atoms, brains, and a whole lot of nerve endings. By the late 1800s, people started to get serious about studying the mind as a science. Enter Wilhelm Wundt, who set up the first ever psychology lab in Germany. Wundt wanted to break the mind down into its basic building blocks, a method called structuralism. Think of it like trying to figure out a cake recipe by analyzing the crumbs. Wundt's experiments were, pretty boring. Participants would stare at stuff, press buttons, and describe their feelings. Science. But William James had other ideas. He was like, hey, Wundt, crumbs are cool, but what about the cake? James wanted to understand how mental processes helped people function in everyday life. He called this functionalism, and his basic outlook on the whole thing was context matters. Then, there was this guy you might have heard of, Sigmund Freud, the granddaddy of psychology. Freud believed in unconscious mind, a hidden part of your brain that controls your deepest desires and fears. He thought you could understand it through dreams, Freudian slips, and a lot of awkward conversations about your parents. While Freud was busy analyzing your psyche, Ivan Pavlov was over in Russia feeding dogs. Pavlov discovered classical conditioning, how you can train a dog, or a human, to associate one thing with another. Every time he rang a bell, the dogs would drool because they thought the food was coming. Then there was B.F. Skinner, who went even further with operant conditioning. Skinner was all about rewards and punishments, training pigeons to play ping pong and humans to push buttons. But let's not cover how conditioning works yet. We'll save that for another episode. And by the mid-1900s, not everyone was buying into behaviorism's humans are just stimulus response machines. Linguist Noam Chomsky was like, hey, hold on guys, the brain is more than just a Skinner box. And he argued for nativism, the idea that it's at least some parts of human thought, like language, for example, are hardwired into our brains. Take that, pigeons. By the late 1900s, psychology had its own revolution, the cognitive revolution. Scientists started using new tools like computers to understand how the brain processes, stores, and retrieves information. Suddenly, the brain wasn't just a black box, it was a really, really complicated filing system. And today, psychology is venturing to new frontiers, everything from AI to neuroplasticity to the psychology of why you watch videos like this one. So, from Descartes to dualism to Skinner and his pigeons, psychology has grown from philosophical musings to a full-blown science. Along the way, we've been asked big questions like, what is the mind, and why do dogs drool at bells? And joining us next time as we explore how conditioning works. Thanks for watching, and as they say in Crash Course, please give me an A for this.